Well, I'm joined by Steve Fund, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Intel. Steve, first of all, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's very much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Intel has actually a very special place in the BrandZ Top 100 Most Valuable Global Brands. It's the 10th year that we run the study, and actually only about 40% of brands have been in the study for every single one of those 10 years, and Intel is one of those. So congratulations on that.
Awesome.
And this year we've seen a significant increase in Intel's brand value, up 58%. So Steve, let's really start at the beginning, I suppose, which is how would you define what the Intel brand is to its consumers?
So Intel, at its core, and the brand promise is that it makes amazing experiences possible. And what we've really trying to do now is get people to think of Intel's role in the experiences that they get from the products that they use. If you think about Intel as an ingredient brand trapped on the inside, people don't really understand the connection between the experience that they get on the outside. So Intel's role is pretty pervasive. We have a very broad portfolio of products, and we impact people's lives all day. So whether it's powering cities and municipalities, to cloud servers, to wearable devices, to the things that you're most familiar with, which is PCs, to mobile devices, to cars and automating cars, we are literally in products that people use and interact with every single day.
What do you think the special sort of issues are around a brand that, in a sense, powers and is an ingredient brand to other brands being able to make innovative and distinctive products?
I think we need to, the way that we're approaching it is to get people to, is to shift the paradigm from the products that they buy and the manufacturer labels to really thinking about the role that the technology ingredients play in enabling their experiences. So today someone will go into a store and they'll think, I want to buy an HP or a Lenovo or a Dell or an Asus laptop. And what we're trying to do is shift the paradigm to get people to insist on Intel first, knowing that Intel is what really makes the differentiating experience, and then let them decide on which brand they want, which product brand they want. So we want to shift the paradigm, because today people are thinking about the product brands and not so much about Intel, and we want to get people to think about Intel and not the product brands.
And in that context, in a sense, what is it that is the definitive differentiating experience that having Intel within that product delivers to you as a consumer, or and indeed as a manufacturer or a corporation?
We make their products run better. So it's what I was saying before about Intel making amazing experiences possible. That if you could take a product with a competitive processor, a competitive technology, and Intel's processor, Intel's technology, the products with Intel inside will perform better. So you can keep everything else the same and just change our processor, and the product will run better. So we want people to understand Intel's role in making that product perform better.
On the journey from San Francisco Airport to you here, the heart of Silicon Valley, you pass an amazing array of technology brands. Many of them, I suppose, have their origins in their individual founders. And you, in a sense, have two amazing founders, Gordon Moore, who is the creator of Moore's Law, and Andy Grove and Robert Noyce. Is there a special issue with building a brand where the founders have an immense sort of personality within the organization?
Well, I think if you look at just Gordon Moore, so we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of Moore's Law. Even though Intel is just 47 years old, we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of Moore's Law. And that's at the core of how we operate as a company. So Moore's Law allows you to reinvent your processor size and performance every 2 years. And we've been holding true for 50 years. And I think when Gordon first came out with this law, he thought it would be maybe a decade that we'd be able to achieve that level of technological advancement, and yet we're at 50 years. And literally that drives our business model, that drives our marketing, that drives everything. So we're still very much still driven by our founders' philosophy in Moore's Law.
Again, when you wander around the floors of Intel, sometimes you see signs that say rock stars in this corridor. And of course, in Intel terminologies, those rock stars are in fact engineers. Is there both a positive and an issue in trying to get engineers to understand maybe the slightly ephemeral things of what actually a brand is all about?
I think that's why they brought me on. So I come from a consumer background, and I think I've just been here for a little over a year. And when Brian Krzanich, my CEO and my boss, went out and recruited the new CMO, he looked for someone like me. So he went specifically after a consumer marketer. So he stepped out of wanting to get someone who understood technology and really wanted to get someone who really understood the consumer and how to talk to the consumer. And I think much of that is, how do we humanize and connect with our external customers, but also is how do we talk about the brand and get people to understand its value and care about it internally. So how do I talk in terms that are simple enough and powerful enough so that an engineering-driven culture really values brand building? And at Intel, the brand and marketing doesn't drive our business strategy. We help enable it. So we're still very much an engineering-driven culture and an engineering-driven company. But the brand now enables our strategy. And I think over the past year, we've really been able to draw a very tight linkage between brand value and business value. And we always say that, one of my mantras is that the strength of a brand and the strength of your business are inextricably linked. So you're not going to have a strong business if you have a weak brand, and vice versa. You're not going to have a strong brand and a weak business, that they move in the same direction. So if we believe that we want to grow, which of course we do, we need to increase the strength and vitality of our brand.
Well, indeed, when you look at the BrandZ analysis, looking at share performance versus strong brands, you see that same sort of correlation as well. What are you doing inside the organisation to help your engineering colleagues understand what the brand is, and I suppose bring that sort of brand thinking to the engineering skills that they have in order to create outstanding products?
Well, first, we need to be very disciplined and analytic and rigorous in terms of understanding our customers' needs, and then show how draw a connection between understanding the customer's needs and the idea or product that we need to deliver against them. So it's a very research-intensive culture and a very data-driven culture, and engineers value that. So we try to do everything in a way that shows the discipline in terms of understanding our customer. The other thing that we've been doing is we've done a global road tour. So we just defined a new brand strategy and a new brand platform with a new tagline and a new brand promise and new brand positioning, and we rolled that out across the globe. So I've gone into multiple fabs, which are our factories. I've gone into various sites that are engineering intensive sites and predominant engineering folks, and we've taught them the basics of why brand matters, what the role is of our brand, and how we're positioning it for success to enable our overall business strategy.
Steve, your career has spanned sort of FMCG. Gillette is probably one of the brands you've had a big influence on. On the other end of the spectrum to retail as well. A double-headed question in a sense. What do you think technology brands can learn from FMCG and retail brand experiences? And also the other way around, what do you think those organizations can learn from technology brands?
I think it's the value of brand building and the balance between the long term and the short term. So when I came here, there was an inordinate focus on short-term sales driving results. Even though we have an incredibly strong brand, we've taken our eye off of brand equity building over the past few years, and we've seen slippage. As you look at your historical trend, we've seen some slippage in our own internal data. So I think what they can learn is the balance of equity building and demand generation marketing, and the need to protect those equity dollars, even when there may be a downturn. I think what we can learn the other way is the product development roadmap and how you need to constantly reinvent and innovate and improve on what is already a great product. Intel is amazing in terms of Moore's Law, in terms of people will say you can't do it, and yet we continually innovate and improve what is already the world's best products. So I think just that rigor in terms of, and can-do attitude in terms of making the impossible possible, which is what Intel does and what technology brands do, I think injecting that into more core consumer brands would be very beneficial.
looking at making the impossible possible. We've talked a little bit about Moore's Law and how when Gordon Moore created it, he didn't think it was going to last for as long as it has done. If you look in your sort of crystal ball of innovation and the way in which Intel is going to lead the future, in a sense the future doesn't happen, it's created, what do you see the main drivers of the way in which innovation is going in the future in the technology space?
So today we learn a lot through social listening and social media in terms of what consumers' needs are and really what their unmet needs are. So what is it that they're looking for? The products that we help develop, that they're looking for new dimensions of performance that they haven't achieved before. So we do a lot of listening in terms of understanding what those unmet needs are and how we can improve on what vector. Whereas in the past, I think a lot of the product development was driven by engineering. Today, there's really good, strong collaboration between research, digital marketing, social media listening, and product development. So I think those are getting much tighter. In terms of marketing and marketing innovation, we constantly are reinventing our marketing mix. We're constantly looking at what works and what doesn't. We evaluate everything. We're a very ROI-driven culture and mindset here. So every dollar that we spend in the marketplace, whether it's for demand generation or brand equity enhancement, we really understand how hard those dollars are working for us. And we constantly make adjustments to how we're spending, where we're spending, what agencies we're using, whether we need to adapt marketing programs or creative locally if it's working or not working. So we're constantly looking at changing what we're doing in terms of how we buy media. It's just every day is a new day in terms of how we think about marketing and how we change the way we approach it.
Well, Andy Grove famously said that only the paranoid survive, and I suppose you don't get more paranoid by listening to exactly what everybody says to you on social media at the moment. How do you look at that social media and being able to understand what it means and the implications of it? So I suppose, again, a double-headed question. What process do you have in the organisation to be able to understand what people are saying, and then how do you start to filter that to be able to work out what are the key issues that need to be addressed as a result of it?
Yeah, we've started to set up digital hubs in a number of different geographies where we real-time monitor social sentiment about our brand or our products. We look at all posts related to our product, whether it's blogs or comments on all social media sites. So we're constantly monitoring feedback in terms of what people are talking about, is it positive or negative, and how do we help. We also look at new tools and new ways to engage. So as an example, in China, they're very into chat. So we set up customer support functions through WeChat, which we hadn't done before. So we're looking at ways that they interact and constantly monitoring what we hear and what they say and engage in new and different ways.
And what's the key that you found to filter that back into the organisation to be able to impact maybe product development, maybe research, maybe customer engagement?
Yeah, literally every day we'll look at the data and we'll try to understand what's working and what's not. And we'll feed that back not only through the marketing team, but we'll feed it through the business units, we'll feed it through sales, and we'll feed it eventually through the technology groups.
We're sort of undergoing an immense change in consumers. New millennials who are, first of all, digital natives, second of all, are beginning now to have real spending power. What impact do you think they are going to have in the way in which Intel goes to market?
Significant, but probably there's not a marketer out there who said that they're not going to target millennials. But I would say that they're a real key opportunity for us. So technology is a category, obviously, that young people use every single day and really value as a part of their everyday lives. I would say that over the past few years, we haven't done a good enough job connecting with the youth market that we need to. And if your brand's customer base, those who really know and value your brand, get older and older and older, eventually you won't exist. So we know that we need to replenish the pipeline and engage with youth in a more in a more direct and fruitful way than we have in the past. And that's one of the reasons we went out and signed Jim Parsons from the show The Big Bang Theory. He's on the #1 rated show in the US and other markets, but he also is on the #1 rated show with Millennials. So we knew that we needed to reconnect with that group, and he was a great way for us to do that. And we're seeing really good progress in terms of how that younger audience thinks about the brand. From a marketing standpoint, clearly, you need to be where they are, which is in digital and social media. We have great expertise in both of those areas, and we really understand how where to be and how to interact with them. And we're making really good progress in connecting with the youth market through digital and social channels.
Do you see a tension at all between having to focus on the youth market for the very reasons that you talk about, and I suppose at the other end of your target audience sort of dimension is, the chief executives of many of the largest Fortune 500 companies around the world?
I think it all starts with what your brand truth is and what your brand promise is. And if we stay true to Intel makes amazing experiences possible, how that idea comes to life, whether it's to a millennial through, could be experiential activation marketing, or to a someone who buys cloud computing in a Fortune 50 company. Very different audiences, but if we stay true to our brand promise and what Intel delivers, it may come across in different ways through different mediums, but we'll be okay. A brand as big as Intel has to stretch. So we know we need to target youth, but at the same time, we do need to connect with older folks. It's just the same messages delivered in the same way across multiple channels to multiple audiences may alienate one audience or another. So you have to be very targeted, and you really have to try to tailor your communications and your the way you interact with those groups and personalize your message. But at the same time, it all has to ladder up to what your brand truth is and your brand promise.
As marketeers, we've been wanting for forever, maybe, to be able to target individual consumers with individual messages that are just relevant for them at that specific moment of time. And I suppose with the Internet of Things, that's sort of becoming possible. What do you see life being like in the Internet of Things age, and what position do you think Intel will take in that?
Oh, we're going to take a leadership position. So we are already in so many products that people are not aware of, and that's part of our brand. I won't call it a challenge, I'll call it an opportunity, is to get people to understand Intel's role in all these products that they interact with on a daily basis. Today, consumers primarily think of us as a processor brand that's inside of PCs. But we're in so many more products in so many more ways. So not only do we have processors, but we have technology, and we have security, and we have a whole host of technology inside across a very wide and broad portfolio of products. But the Internet of Things is going to grow dramatically. It already is. We have it's very fragmented right now, so we have a relatively small share of a very big and growing category, although we already have a couple of $1 billion in sales. But
It sounds like a large category to me.
we're very much focused on it, and we think it speaks to our brand promise of Intel makes amazing experiences possible. We just need to bring that to life across a wide variety of products in the Internet of Things.
And as one of the leading marketeers in the US, what do you see the Internet of Things implication to the world of marketing? Again, looking at the next 10 years of brand value growth.
It offers you so many opportunities to interact with your customers that you're not interacting with today. And there's so much intelligence and ability to personalize messages or experiences through those products because they're going to be so smart. So today, if you're just interacting with consumers in limited ways, tomorrow with the Internet of Things, when everything is automated, it gives you so many more opportunities to interact and build your brand relevance and connection. So I think it's an amazing opportunity for us and for other marketers to really increase your number of connection points with the customer on a daily basis.
As a ex-retail marketer, I suppose you had a lot of sympathy for some of the retailers last year who had, I suppose, an annus horribilis in terms of security.
My old company, in fact, had that.
As a leading technology player and a an enabler of other people's brands. How do you see the whole sort of security issue in terms of its importance to the Intel brand, but also enabling other brands to fulfill their promise to their consumers?
Oh, it's critical, and that's why, honestly, we created Intel Security as a sub-brand, because we just think it's that important, and we believe it will help build the strength of the Intel brand. That data and security and people's privacy are the utmost of importance, and we think the role of security is going to continue to increase dramatically over the next few years. That's why we went out and bought McAfee several years ago, and why we have a ton of new initiatives around security. We even did an ad recently with Jim Parsons about our product that we call TrueKey, which allows your face to act as your password, which is just the ultimate in security. So you don't have to type in a password. Your face recognition unlocks the device. So we truly believe in it, and we're trying to make it mainstream with innovation like that.
And is that, I suppose, the next genre of computing? Whereas computers have always been able to think but never been able to see and being able to react to what they see. So is that genre of computing and the applications that can be derived off the back of that going to be a new application that we'll be seeing more of in the future? Absolutely.
So we have a whole host of products and innovation, what we're calling RealSense Technology, which allows you to interact with computing devices through hand gestures. So you never have to touch the keys, you never have to touch the screen. The computer will recognize your hand gestures to react in the way that you want. Your hand and your facial recognition and your facial and your spoken language to react in the way that you want to. So we do believe this whole notion of immersive interaction and hands-free computing is going to continue to grow pretty dramatically.
So the promise of science fiction is going to be delivered in the future.
We like to call it science fact, actually. So at Intel, we like to say that we turn science fiction into science fact.
Out of interest, what do you think drives it? Do you think the science fiction has driven man's desire to make it possible, or do you think it's the other way around?
I think science fiction can be viewed as fantasy, but I think the reality is that a company like Intel, in terms of how progressive we are in developing technology, people would be amazed. So it was the Jim Parsons ad when he went into the lab and he was discovering all this innovation that he wasn't familiar with and wasn't aware of. That's what Intel is like. That you don't really see the power of what we do unless you're on the inside. And that's part of my marketing and brand challenge, is to unlock that potential. And what we call it is let the inside out, playing off of Intel Inside. I need to let the inside out and let the consumers of the world really understand the power that Intel plays in their daily lives.
Looking to the future, Steve, we've been doing brand valuations for 10 years. A lot's happened in the last 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago. Your crystal ball, with your experience across many different sectors, and clearly now your experience in technology, what do you see the future bringing for the marketing community and the way in which marketers can help organizations drive and create brand value?
I think marketing is fascinating because what's old is sometimes new again, and
was never like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what I would say is that people, it's going to always be a combination of traditional and new forms of communication and forms of marketing. The traditional are not going to go away. They may become less important. You may have to think about them in different ways, but they're definitely not going to go away. And I think for a marketer to be successful, you have to understand the balance of that. And what may have worked in the past may not work in the future. What hasn't worked in the past may very well work in the future. And I think things like digital marketing and social media, of course, are going to continue in importance. Mobile marketing is going to grow pretty dramatically. Data and analytics is going to become more and more important, as it already has been over the past few years. Personalization, we talked about that before. Personalizing the messages, personalizing the experiences, personalizing your interaction with your customers is going to continue to grow in importance. I think it's a pretty dynamic and vibrant place to be in, and you can't sit on your laurels, and you have to constantly adapt and monitor what you're doing to make sure that you're as effective today as you were yesterday.
Do you think we're spending more time, effort in experimenting in new areas just to see what happens?
I think you have to. So you have to carve out a certain percentage of your budget every single year to experiment. If you're if you're only putting in practice things that you know are proven and that work, you're going to fall behind very, very quickly. So you absolutely need to protect some dollars and innovate. And you know, not everything is going to work, but that's okay because you learn from your mistakes. Hopefully you don't make the same mistakes more than once. But absolutely, innovation and marketing innovation and testing and learning is going to be critical for success going forward.
Well, I very much look forward to seeing both the technical innovations and the marketing innovations of Intel going forward. Steve from Intel, Chief Marketing Officer, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.